Donkey Kong. He's like one of the greatest platforming mascots ever made. And with the Donkey Kong Country series having so many great levels in them, we figured we'd honor the top 10 best. But there's so many good ones out there, so to make it a little bit easier on ourselves, we're focusing on just the old school ones. So hey, I'm Nervous Nick for Screw Attack's top 10 retro Donkey Kong Country levels.
Number 10.
DKC 3 really brings the gimmick levels harder than the previous two, but Poisonous Pipeline is so extreme, we've got to give it a shout out. The polluted waters of this level have some kind of mind-altering effect on the apes because the controls get flipped backwards. No joke, when we played this game recently, we had to turn our controllers upside down to beat it. As kids, we weren't so smart, and this was one of the most challenging levels in the entire game. Getting past urchins while avoiding clownfish, which literally are clownfish, would have been tough enough as it is. But with flipped directional controls, you can forget all about beating this level until you play it again as a grown-up and are smart enough to flip the controller over.
Number 9.
If you're not very familiar with platformers, it's really important that you respect the rhythm of a level. It may not be evident to everyone, but even the most plain of 2D platforming stages have a rhythm to them. Kinda like jumps in motocross. You can get in this rhythm and totally fall into this mode where you become one with the game. Both classic and new DKC games are great at this, but Crockhead Clamor does it to perfection. The tough jumps, climbing on the reeds, the hugely satisfying bounce you get from landing on the flitters. It's one of those levels where you can just get in the zone. I mean, you can't tell me you don't feel like you're awesome at DKC games when you beat Crockhead Clamor. That is what a great level is all about.
Number 8.
It's tough to not make a list full of gimmick levels because DKC 2 and 3 are full of so many quality stages that really break up any monotony. But Windy Well throws down a new navigation mechanic, blowing hard wind up at you so you have to float through the stage dodging crooks and bazooka guys. Seems like not a big deal, but you've got to appreciate, especially for the time, how both apes have standalone animations. The way Dixie's hair blows past her body, or the fact that Diddy's animation is completely different. He's face down doing the Tom Cruise thing. Yeah, there's quite a few levels that play with new mechanics, but Windy Well represents all of them.
Number 7.
I'm gonna commit a horrible crime here and give the screen wiping level not to Castle Crush, but to Ripsaw Rage. Please don't hate me! For me, I guess it's the aesthetic. Like, imagine being inside the trunks of giant redwoods, then this 1,000-foot-tall lumberjack comes up and says, "I hate you," and then attacks you with a giant saw. The thing is, this is the kind of saw that's held by two people working together, and it's cutting up the tree. As in, vertically. As in, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it's more or less the same concept as some other more iconic levels, but it's a dangerously sharp saw trying to kill a baby and his babysitter. The anxiety of making it laterally up through multiple trees while not getting caught under hard edges brought the pressure. And it's both a great and simple aesthetic for a screen wiping level.
Number 6.
I remember the first time I ever played Minecart Carnage. See, I was a huge fan of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and this was the first time in my life I got to live out the fantasy of riding in a minecart in an extremely dangerous mine. What the heck are the Kongs doing in here? Like, look at all these damaged carts! For God's sake, how many lives were lost in this mine shaft? Well, we're gonna add a couple more. Sure, after all these years, we're good enough now to try to beat the level blindfolded, but that doesn't make it any less of a classic.
Ah, yes! Ah, yes! Number 5.
The DKC games are all about the jungle. Yeah, we like to explore icy peaks, deserty canyons, and even industrial factories, but those lush tropical environments are what come to mind first when thinking about DKC levels. Jungle Hijinks is undoubtedly one of the best intro levels in retro gaming. I mean, it did introduce you to the empty banana horde and all, but we're going with Orang-UTAN Gang as our jungle level to rep DKC 1. You know those silhouette levels in the more modern DKC games? Say hello to your ancestor. Orang-UTAN Gang features as you may have guessed, a gang of orangutans that throw barrels at you. Going from the dusky jungle floor to the colorful treetops made you feel like the world of Kong Country had an actual day and night cycle. And with all the obscure bonus rooms that required Espresso the Ostrich, we spent a lot of time cleaning this one out.
Number 4.
Oh, man, we kind of threw down a bit over whether this was going to be higher up on the list than Minecart Carnage or not, but it's the hard truth. Rickety Race is a better level because you're not just trying to survive, you're trying to win. We don't really have context for the strange version of hell where you race crocodiles on a skull roller coaster, then sandwich them into the rail and knock them off the track, but man, does it feel good to get that first place victory, am I right? And if you really want the adrenaline pumping good stuff, activate this little secret. Yeah, that's right. Play Rickety Race like a real tryhard and go like 37 times faster than normal speed, whoop the doo-doo out of the other Kremlings riding the coaster, and cement yourself as a true DKC minecart champion. That's Rickety Race.
Number 3.
We've braved jungle ruins, coral reefs, and Ewok villages. Then out of nowhere comes Oil Drum Alley. Taking the Kongs into an industrial factory was a crazy departure from what we had seen in the game up to that point. The hanging chains, the fiery barrels, and again, that great soundtrack that combined fast-paced ambience with jungle-sounding clangs. It really made the Kongs feel out of their element, and in so, the level seemed all the more dangerous. If we hadn't known by then that DKC's level design was some of the best of all time, we were convinced by Oil Drum Alley.
Number 2.
The hardest level in the entire franchise. And I do mean the freaking hardest. Basically a trial by fire that tests your skills with each animal body. You will get chewed up and spit back out by animal antics. Not because of Rambi the Rhino, not because of Squid the Spider, not because of On Guard the Sword... Oh, On Guard, like a swordsman, I get it now. But because of Squawks the Parrot. And also Mother Nature, because she keeps gusting wind at you while you're navigating this giant bush. That's like trying to pull something out of your wiener during an earthquake. Sure, checking out speedrunners do it's no problem, but with the flap speed, dissension, bees, and deadly environmental hazards, this section is arguably the most challenging in any DKC game. And that's before one final section with Ratley that's also incredibly hard. Don't you dare call yourself a hardcore DKC player unless you've conquered animal antics.
It's number 1.
It's 1994, and Donkey Kong Country is already the greatest looking game ever made. Then you get to Gorilla Glacier's first level, and everything you know has changed. Many levels in the Donkey Kong Country games are dedicated to heart-wrenching barrel blasting, where one mistimed button press means immediate death. Most will probably think of DKC2's Bramble Blast first, but it doesn't have the magic of Snow Barrel Blast. This one introduced icy, slippery platforms, treacherous jumps, and included a snowstorm that, along with the soundtrack, got more intense the further you went. Changing weather? In a Super Nintendo game? What? As tense as this level would have been on a happy, sunny day, having to navigate these insane obstacles during a blizzard upped the tension and locks it in as the best retro DKC level.